For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish but have everlasting life. God bless you. You can be seated. Today we're going to talk about a father's love. What is a father? It's a male parent who has a parental bond to a child or children. It is a title of respect. A father is a person who has certain rights and obligation to his child or children. He is a person you can look up to no matter the age, no matter the size, or where you are in life. And so this weekend, I had two engagements this weekend. And so it was part of the Juneteenth festival that's been going on, the celebration. And as I traveled up and down the roads, I began to start looking for displays and setups of, Father's Day baskets, balloons. And I saw none. And when Mother's Day come, we roll out the carpet. We put out all kind of displays. We got all kind of baskets, all kind of gifts. And it's not that I'm not putting mothers down, but we have to not, and I'm not lessening mothers or the role that they play, but it shows the acknowledgement and the mindset and the attitude that we have toward our fathers. The fathers have the seed that produces life. The mothers have the womb that carries life, but it's God that imparts life. So while we look at the natural definition of a father, there's a biblical definition of the word father, one who nurtures, one who corrects, one who provides guidance, sets the example, shows love, not just times when it's convenient, but at all times, whether the child displays good or bad behavior. A father never gives up on their child, just as God never gives up on us. A father has the responsibility of teaching their children right from wrong, good from bad. And although we have a blueprint of the role and responsibility that fathers play, we've gotten farther and far away from the guidelines of raising our children. And while I do understand that times have changed drastically, we still bear the responsibility of steering our children in the right direction as God has instructed us to do so. For many years, we've seen the roles of mothers raising children in single families' homes, where the father has abdicated his role. In other words, he has failed to undertake the responsibility in life of his children. But we are now seeing a trend that's now changing, where fathers are stepping up to the plate, and now you're seeing more fathers becoming single parents. So the dynamics of the family are now starting to change. Fathers have a duty and a responsibility first to pray for their children, not just when they're born, but while they're in their mother's womb. So it's important that the father has an active participation even when the child is in the womb. 1 Chronicles 29:19. David prayed for Solomon, his son. Solomon was one of the wisest kings who kept peace on the earth for 40 years. David gave his son Solomon. If we know the story about David and Solomon, David could not build a temple because there was too much bloodshed that was on David's hand. But God told him, I'm going to allow your son Solomon to build a temple for you. But he gave him the tools. Even though he knew he could not build the temple that he wanted to build for God, he gave him the tools that he needed so that he could build God's temple. And that's what a father must do. They must give their children the tools that they need to succeed in life spiritually. So prayer must be an important daily regimen. We see shows like Maury, we see shows like Paternity Court, where that it has to be established, paternity has to be established, and then sometimes you see the mother, they'll come to court even pregnant, and sometimes when they'll state, this is not my child. And so what happens, what they don't realize, they've attached a stigma to that child, even while that child is in that womb, a stigma of rejection. And so now down the road, we trying to figure out, this child is trying to figure out, and this is not with everybody, but 5, 10, 15, 20 years later, they can't understand why they're dealing with the spirit of rejection, because it was a seed that was sown while they were in the womb. Your words have power, life and death. And in the book of Proverbs 18:21, it say life and death lies in the power of your tongue. And so your words have power. 2, we have the responsibility to teach our children. You should teach your children at home. Teaching starts at home. That's where it all begins, not at school, not in a government entity. Children in this generation, they have just become disrespectful. I know when I grew up, you could be in a room with adults talking and interrupt the conversation because you get your teeth knocked out. You couldn't do that. We knew to say yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, yes, sir, no, sir. We knew to respect our elders. And now we got them where they're cussing them out. They're cussing the teachers out. They beating up the teachers now. And so it's important. That role as a father is so important. So the teaching starts at home, not when they go to school. They have to get the foundation. It's just like you building a house. That house has to be built on a foundation. Otherwise, it will just fall over and collapse. So that foundation is very important. That teaching is very important. Social media. And I'm not against social media, because you can learn a lot of stuff on social media. I'm not against YouTube. You learn a lot of stuff on YouTube. But what I'm saying is, you don't use that as a substitute for your part of teaching your children. Number 3, fathers must spend time with their children. Deuteronomy 6:6-9. Never be so busy that you fail to spend time needed with your children, because once that time is gone, you can't get that time back. Spending time with your children. Never compare one child with the other child, because every child is not the same. Every child is different. This child may get it quickly. This child you may have to spend a little bit more time with. But never, ever be so busy that you don't have the time, or you can't take out time or the opportunity. That's where you get to know where their strengths are, where their weaknesses are, and you can help them. Number 4, fathers should always encourage and aid and assist their children, not to provoke them. Ephesians 6:1-4 talks about this. It talks about where the fathers are not to provoke the children to anger. When you provoke them, what you're basically doing is you're trying to, you will say or do something that will cause a reaction or response out of them. Outrage, discontentment, vexation, hatred, resentment, displeasure, discouragement. Your job as a father is to help them to reach their destiny and their potential. Number 5, we must be patient and show compassion to our children, just as Christ has shown compassion to us. God has shown compassion to us. Every child, and I said this earlier, learns at a different pace. If you take the time to invest in your children, you will reap the benefits, because I'm reaping them right now. You get in what you put out. You get out what you put in. A father is a provider. He provides for the needs of his family, not just financially and spiritually, but emotionally and mentally. A father not only provides while he is here on earth, but he makes preparations before he is taken off the scene. So sometimes you see them set up trust funds or they leave things behind for their children. There may be times when things will get hard and you may be out of work. You being a leader of the family must keep your spirits up so your family won't see the worryation on your face, because we're not supposed to be worrying. We're supposed to give it to God. You must put your hope, faith, and trust in God that he's going to be the one to see you through. Never, ever give up on your children. No matter what it looks like, what it appears to be. Every day will not be sunshine, and you may have to shed some tears silently, face some bumps in the road, go through some heartaches, face some challenges. But the fathers, I want to encourage you that you will come out. Don't give up. Don't give up. If you read the story in Luke 15 about the prodigal son, he went out and he lived just the way he wanted to live. But you know what? That father never gave up on him. And every day he would stand out there and he would wait and see, is this going to be the day that my son come home? And of course, the son did come home. And the following day he would do the same thing until eventually that child came to his senses and he came back home. He realized and recognized, even though he was messed up, he was looking toe up, he realized that that was his son. From a distance away, he realized who he was, but he never gave up on his son. And just like the father of that prodigal son never gave up on him, you can't give up on your children. Number 8, a father would discipline their children, just as God bring chastening to us when we get out of line. Children, they will test you to the limit. How far that they will go. Just like sometimes we try to test God to see how far or how much we can get away with until he has to bring correction. And that's what a father does. He brings correction. If you ever notice a plant, when you see them plant like a tree, and you ever notice that they have like these sticks and they tie them to the tree, and the tree is very flexible, and they do that so the tree can grow in a certain way. That's the same thing with children. You start them out, you teach them, you nurture them, and you train them, because by the time they get 10, 15 years old, the same thing with the tree. You can't bend and break that tree. Same thing with children. You tried to chastise them at 10 or 15 years. No. You should have started when they was little. Being chastised, it never feels good. But it feels good to reap the fruit afterwards. 9, set an example for your children. Don't live any kind of way. Just as Jesus has set an example for us. There are benefits to living a godly life. Setting an example that your children can follow. So don't use the analogy, just do what I do. Do what I say, not as I do. Because they visual, they see. They see exactly what you do. So they feel like if you do it, I can do it too. But they'll try to do it undercover and try to get away with it. And so they watch. So you as fathers, you have to set the example so that they will have something to go by, just as Jesus set an example for us to follow. Don't talk down on them. When you are setting an example, you got to walk it, you got to live it, you got to talk it. Not just say it with words. You got to show love. They know, and they know what love is all about. Not going out there trying to get somebody else that can show them love. Fathers have to step up. Show your daughters how you're supposed to be treated. That's such a big thing. And I thank God because my son is doing that with his daughters now. He shows them how they should be treated. Even in their young age of them being 6 and 8 now. He shows that to them. And so, fathers, I want to encourage you. Also, I want to say, mothers, just get behind them, gird them up, encourage them. You're doing a wonderful job. Don't drag them under the bus. Don't do that. Because we have some women that are out there that will do that. They will just drag them up underneath the bus. They want to go see their children, but they can't. They being drugged. So you have to be careful even when you're speaking over your children. Don't even allow people to speak certain things over your children. That's so important. Like I said earlier, words have power. And you have to nip that in the bud. You got to nip it in the bud. I've done it. I've had to do it. You're going to be just like your daddy. No, the devil is a lie. Not so. And not on my watch. And I've had to do that. And you have to do the same thing. As fathers, I want to encourage you to continue to be the amazing fathers that you are. Continue to allow God to lead you. Look into the hill from whence cometh your help, knowing that all of your help comes from God.